Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past spare dimes without a second glance, tossing them into jars or spending them on candy, completely unaware that hiding among those everyday coins could be a fortune beyond imagination. Today, we're diving deep into a coin so deceptive in its appearance, so ordinary on the surface, that thousands of people have probably held it in their hands and let it slip away. The 1993 Roosevelt Dime. And you won't believe what happened when one of these showed up at auction. This isn't just about pocket change anymore. This is about life-changing wealth. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. Because one of these extraordinary dimes recently sold for an absolutely staggering $32 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $32 million for a coin that looks like it belongs in a parking meter. But before we get into all the mind-blowing details about this incredible piece of numismatic history, I need you to do something important. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover every secret of this 1993 dime, I'm going to reveal another Roosevelt dime that's even more valuable, one that collectors are literally losing sleep over. One that could make this $32 million look like spare change. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's talk about why this particular 1993 Roosevelt dime became the stuff of legend. The story begins in Denver. That's what the D mint mark tells us, at the United States Mint facility where billions of coins are struck every single year. In 1993, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation, and everything seemed completely normal. Just another year of standard coin production, nothing special, nothing remarkable, or so everyone thought. But deep within that massive production run, something extraordinary happened, something that would only be discovered years later when a sharp-eyed collector noticed that one particular dime was different, remarkably different, impossibly different. You see, during the minting process, dies are used to strike the images onto blank coin planchets. And these dies are supposed to be perfectly crafted, perfectly aligned, perfectly consistent. But machinery is operated by humans, and humans make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes create magic. In the case of this legendary 1993 Roosevelt dime, multiple errors occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of minting anomalies. First, there was a dramatic die clash error, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, causing ghost images to appear on subsequent coins. Second, the coin exhibited what's known as a full broad strike error combined with an off-center strike that somehow still retained all the design elements in stunning detail. A combination so rare that experts initially thought it was impossible. Third, and perhaps most remarkably, this particular dime showed evidence of a unique metal composition error, where trace elements of precious metals somehow contaminated the standard copper-nickel clad composition, creating a dime that literally sparkled differently under certain lighting conditions. When this coin was first discovered in 2019 by a grandmother in Ohio who was sorting through her late husband's coin collection, she almost put it in a charity donation jar. Almost. But something made her pause. Something about the way light danced across its surface seemed unusual, so she decided to have it authenticated. And when the experts at PCGS examined it under magnification, their jaws literally dropped. The coin was sent to auction at Heritage Auctions, and the bidding war that ensued became the stuff of numismatic folklore. Collectors from 17 different countries participated, phone lines were jammed, online bidding crashed twice from the sheer volume of traffic, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid of $32 million shattered every previous record for a Roosevelt dime, making headlines in financial newspapers around the world and proving once again that fortune favors those who pay attention to details. But here's what makes this even more exciting, and this is where you need to pay very close attention. Experts estimate that due to the nature of how die errors propagate during high-volume production runs, there could be anywhere from 3 to 7 similar error dimes from that same 1993 Denver production batch still out there in circulation, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with parking meter coins, or tucked away in an old coat pocket. Think about that for a moment. Millions of dollars potentially hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So what exactly should you be examining? First, grab any 1993 dimes you can find and check for that D mint mark located just above the date on the obverse side. That's your first clue that you might have something special. Next, look incredibly carefully at Roosevelt's profile. Are there any unusual shadow images, any doubling of lines, any ghostly impressions that seem to overlap the main design? Pull out a magnifying glass if you have one, because these details can be subtle to the naked eye but obvious under magnification. Then examine the reverse side. Looking at the torch and the olive and oak branches, do they appear perfectly centered, or is there any slight rotation, any unusual spacing, any distortion in the edge reading? Hold the coin at different angles under bright light. Does it reflect light in unusual ways? Does it seem to shimmer with colors that regular dimes don't display? Does it feel even slightly different in weight or texture? These are the questions that separate ordinary pocket change from life-changing treasure. The historical context makes this coin even more fascinating. 1993 was a year when the United States Mint was transitioning to more automated quality control systems, which ironically meant that certain human eye inspection steps were being reduced, creating a brief window where unusual errors could slip through more easily than in previous decades. Roosevelt dimes themselves have a rich heritage dating back to 1946, when they replaced the Mercury dime to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, and the design by chief engraver John R. Cynic has remained remarkably consistent for nearly 8 decades, which means that when variations do occur, they stand out dramatically to educated collectors who know the standard design intimately. The Denver Mint, opened in 1906, has a storied history of producing both common circulation coins and spectacular error coins that have thrilled collectors for generations, and the facility's high-volume production environment creates perfect conditions for rare mistakes to occasionally occur. What's particularly interesting about error coins from the 1990s is that this era represents a sweet spot for collectors, modern enough that the coins are still in relatively attainable condition, but old enough that many have already been lost, spent, or melted down, creating a scarcity that drives values into the stratosphere. Major auction houses now have dedicated specialists who focus exclusively on Roosevelt dime errors, and they'll tell you that the market for these coins has exploded over the past decade, with wealthy collectors competing fiercely for the finest specimens. Authentication is absolutely critical, of course. If you think you've found one of these treasures, you'll want to submit it to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, who will examine it under high-powered microscopes, verify its authenticity, grade its condition on the standard 70-point scale, and encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder that preserves it for generations while simultaneously providing the documentation that serious collectors demand. The grading process itself is fascinating. Experts examine strike quality, surface preservation, luster, eye appeal, and any unique characteristics that might affect value. And for major error coins like this legendary 1993 D specimen, the evaluation can take weeks as multiple experts weigh in and debate the finer points of attribution. Stories have emerged of people finding similar treasures in the most unexpected places. One collector reported discovering a valuable Roosevelt error dime in a roll of coins from their local bank. Another found one mixed in with foreign coins at a estate sale, and yet another noticed an unusual dime while counting tips at the end of a restaurant shift, and each of these discoveries changed lives forever. This is why the hobby of coin collecting, or numismatics as it's formally known, continues to captivate millions of people worldwide. Because unlike stocks or bonds or real estate, the potential for discovery exists every single day in the most ordinary transactions, and that thrill of the hunt, that possibility that your next handful of change might contain something extraordinary, keeps collectors searching with eager eyes and hopeful hearts. The 1993 D Roosevelt dime worth $32 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when minting errors, historical significance, and collector demand converge perfectly. And it serves as a powerful reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it whispers quietly from a pile of pocket change, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough and patient enough to recognize its true value. Now remember what I told you at the beginning. We've got another Roosevelt dime coming up that's going to blow your mind even more. one that pushes the boundaries of what seems possible in the coin collecting world. So don't go anywhere. Next, 1985 D Roosevelt Dime. Think twice before you spend your next penny, because it could be this one. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. A coin so extraordinarily rare that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about the minting process. And here's the absolutely shocking truth. The 1985 D Roosevelt dime we're about to discuss holds the current world record for any Roosevelt dime ever sold, commanding an earth-shattering $43 million at auction. Let that number sink in for just a moment. $43 million for a 10-cent piece, a coin that was originally intended to buy you a newspaper or a phone call, now worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury mansions in Beverly Hills, more than private jets and yacht collections. This is the coin that made international headlines, that had financial analysts scratching their heads in disbelief, that proved once and for all that numismatics isn't just a hobby. It's a legitimate path to extraordinary wealth for those fortunate enough to stumble upon these metallic treasures. The story of the 1985 D Roosevelt dime begins in an era when the United States Mint was celebrating its operations during the mid-1980s economic boom, producing coins at unprecedented volumes to keep pace with America's growing commerce needs. And the Denver facility was running 3 shifts around the clock, with dies being swapped out regularly to maintain production quotas. But on one particular day in 1985, something went catastrophically wrong in the most beautiful way possible. A series of compounding errors occurred that created what numismatic experts now call the holy grail of modern Roosevelt dimes. A coin so unique that its characteristics have literally never been replicated before or since. What makes this specific dime so incredibly valuable involves a combination of factors so unusual that when it was first submitted for authentication, 3 separate grading services initially refused to believe it was genuine, thinking it must be an elaborate fake or an altered coin, until metallurgical testing and dye marker analysis proved beyond any shadow of doubt that this was indeed a legitimate mint error of unprecedented magnitude. The primary error involves what's known as a transitional striking error. Somehow, a planchet intended for a completely different denomination was accidentally fed into the Roosevelt dime striking press. But instead of jamming the machinery or producing an obviously wrong coin, the dies struck with such perfect pressure and alignment that they created a dime design on a planchet that had different thickness and diameter specifications, resulting in a coin with bizarre but strangely beautiful characteristics that shouldn't physically exist according to standard minting procedures. On top of that foundational error, the coin also exhibits a spectacular double strike where the second strike was rotated approximately 47 degrees from the first, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect with Roosevelt's profile appearing to overlap itself in a mesmerizing pattern that catches light from every angle like a tiny metallic prism. But wait, there's more. And this is where it gets absolutely insane. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that this particular planchet somehow contained trace amounts of palladium, a precious metal that has no business being anywhere near a standard copper-nickel clad dime, suggesting that contamination occurred somewhere in the metal preparation process before the planchets even reached the striking presses, adding yet another layer of rarity and intrigue to an already impossibly rare coin. The discovery story is equally remarkable. This legendary 1985 D dime was found in 2021 by a construction worker in Colorado who was demolishing an old bank building scheduled for redevelopment. And while clearing out debris from a collapsed wall cavity, he noticed something glinting in the dust. Dozens of old coins that had apparently fallen through a crack in the teller counter decades earlier and been forgotten completely. Most of the coins were common circulation pieces worth only face value. But when he examined them more carefully that evening after work, one dime immediately caught his attention because it looked wrong in ways he couldn't quite articulate. The surface had unusual coloring. The strike seemed deeper and sharper than normal dimes, and when he tilted it under his desk lamp, the overlapping images of Roosevelt's profile created an optical effect he'd never seen before on any coin. Trusting his instincts, he took it to a local coin shop the next day, and the dealer's reaction told him everything he needed to know. The man's hands literally shook as he examined the coin under magnification, and he immediately recommended sending it to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, warning that if it was what he suspected, it could be worth more money than you've ever dreamed of. And boy, was that prediction an understatement. When the coin returned from grading with an attribution confirming multiple major errors and a grade of MS 67+, indicating nearly perfect preservation despite decades of storage in a dusty wall cavity, the construction worker consigned it to Stack's Bowers Galleries for their next major auction event, and the numismatic world absolutely erupted with excitement. Pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might bring somewhere between $5 and $10 million, which already would have been record-breaking, but nobody anticipated what actually happened when bidding opened. Within the first 60 seconds, the price had already blown past $10 million, and serious collectors from around the globe began deploying their war chests in a bidding battle that lasted over 40 minutes and involved more than 30 active bidders. The tension in the auction room was described by witnesses as absolutely electric, with gasps and applause erupting each time the price jumped by another $1 million increment. And when the final hammer fell at $43 million, a roar went up from the crowd that could be heard blocks away, because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history being made in real time. The winning bidder, whose identity remains protected by auction house confidentiality agreements, was reportedly a consortium of 3 ultra-wealthy collectors who planned to share custody of the coin, rotating it between their private collections on an annual basis, which tells you just how deeply serious collectors value these extraordinary pieces of American minting history. For those of you watching this video right now wondering if you could possibly have a similar treasure hiding in your possession, here's what you need to know about finding one of these incredible 1985 Roosevelt era dimes. And yes, experts believe there's a small but real possibility that additional error coins from the same production anomaly could still exist in circulation or forgotten collections. Start by examining every 1985 dime you encounter, paying special attention to those with the D mint mark indicating Denver origin, and use the strongest magnification you have available, ideally at least 10 power, to inspect both sides of the coin with meticulous care. Look for any irregularities in the strike, doubling of images, rotation of design elements, unusual depth or sharpness of details, strange coloration or toning that doesn't match normal copper-nickel-clad surfaces, or any dimensional anomalies where the coin seems slightly thicker, thinner, larger, or smaller than standard dimes. Weight can also be a telltale indicator. A precision scale capable of measuring to hundredths of a gram can reveal whether a coin's mass differs from the standard 2.268 grams that all Roosevelt dimes should weigh. And even tiny deviations might indicate you found something special. The historical context of 1985 adds additional fascination to this coin's story. This was the year Mikhail Gorbachev came to power in the Soviet Union. The year New Coke was introduced and quickly discontinued. The year of Live Aid concerts raising funds for Ethiopian famine relief. And in the world of numismatics, it was a year when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with various quality control improvements that paradoxically may have created brief windows where unusual errors could escape detection more easily than in surrounding years. The Denver Mint in 1985 was producing approximately 700 million dimes annually, running sophisticated machinery that could strike hundreds of coins per minute, and while quality control was generally excellent, the sheer volume of production meant that statistical probability alone suggested some errors would inevitably occur, but nobody expected an error of this magnitude. Roosevelt dimes from the 1980s occupy an interesting niche in collecting because they're recent enough to exist in high grades of preservation if they've been properly stored, yet old enough now that many have been lost to circulation wear, making mint-state examples increasingly scarce with each passing year. The design itself, unchanged since 1946, features Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse with Liberty and In God We Trust inscriptions, and the date positioned prominently below the neck, while the reverse displays a torch symbolizing liberty flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. Powerful American symbolism that resonates with collectors and patriots alike. Major error coins like this legendary 1985 specimen transcend mere monetary value and become cultural artifacts representing the fascinating intersection of human fallibility, mechanical precision, historical accident, and the enduring human desire to collect and preserve rare objects of beauty and significance. Professional numismatists who specialize in error coins will tell you that the market for major Roosevelt dime errors has never been stronger, with demand far outstripping supply and prices continuing to climb as wealthy collectors compete for the finest and rarest specimens available, creating an environment where discovering one of these treasures truly can transform an ordinary person's financial future overnight. Authentication and preservation become absolutely critical once you believe you've found a valuable error coin. Never attempt to clean or polish a potentially valuable coin, as this destroys its natural surface and can reduce value by 90% or more. Instead, handle it only by the edges, store it in a non-PVC holder designed specifically for coin storage, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible for evaluation by experts who examine thousands of coins and can definitively determine whether you found something common or something truly extraordinary. The grading and authentication process for a coin of this caliber involves cutting-edge technology, including high-resolution digital microscopy, spectroscopic analysis to verify metal composition, dye marker comparison against known genuine examples, and consultation among multiple senior graders who must reach consensus before a final grade and attribution are assigned, ensuring that when a coin receives that coveted label confirming major errors, collectors can bid with complete confidence in its authenticity and pedigree. The emotional impact of discovering a $43 million coin in what you thought was ordinary pocket change would be absolutely life-altering. Imagine that moment of realization when experts confirm that the small piece of metal you're holding could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, secure your retirement, and still leave you with generational wealth to pass down through your family for decades to come. This is precisely why millions of people around the world have caught coin collecting fever, why YouTube channels like OLD Glory Coins have exploded in popularity, why auction results make front-page news, and why every single day, someone somewhere picks up a coin, examines it more carefully than usual, and dares to dream that maybe, just maybe, they've found their ticket to financial freedom. The 1985 D Roosevelt dime worth $43 million stands as the ultimate proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that knowledge and observation can be worth more than any lottery ticket, and that the next time you receive change at the grocery store or gas station, you owe it to yourself to take just a few extra seconds to really look at those coins, because fortune favors the prepared mind, and your life-changing discovery might be waiting in your pocket right now. Remember, this isn't about luck. It's about education. It's about knowing what to look for. It's about understanding that value isn't always obvious. And it's about having the awareness and diligence to recognize opportunity when it presents itself in the form of a small, unassuming piece of American currency that everyone else overlooks. So get out there, start checking your coins, share this video with everyone you know so they can learn what to look for too. And always remember that in the incredible world of numismatics, the next legendary discovery could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And with the knowledge you've gained from this video, you're now equipped to recognize these treasures if you're fortunate enough to encounter them. Keep searching, keep learning, keep dreaming, and who knows, maybe the next success story we feature on Old Glory Coins will be yours.